Marcus had lived beside this mountain highway long enough to know every road, fence, and cattle crossing. The underpass beneath the highway was a quiet little passage that kept his ranch connected. The underpass wasn't just a shortcut. It allowed cattle and ranch equipment to move safely beneath the highway without interfering with traffic above. One afternoon, Marcus noticed unfamiliar HOA trucks near the underpass. Karen Whitmore was standing beside them, directing workers as if the property had suddenly become hers. Karen told Marcus that the HOA wanted the cattle passage closed and secured. Marcus calmly asked what would happen to the traffic and ranch access around the highway. By the end of the afternoon, the open passage was gone behind a heavy metal gate. Marcus stared at it, realizing that one small closure could affect much more than his cattle. The first morning after the closure, Marcus had to change the entire routine of moving his cattle. But an even bigger problem was already developing on the highway above. The highway had always depended on predictable movement through the valley. Once the normal route was restricted, drivers began slowing down at the same bottleneck. Within hours, the traffic wasn't just a small inconvenience. A line of vehicles stretched farther and farther through the valley. Marcus didn't celebrate the chaos. He simply watched, knowing the underpass had been designed to keep this exact kind of conflict from happening. For the first time, Karen looked toward the highway and seemed to understand the scale of the problem. The traffic wasn't disappearing. It was multiplying. Drivers were stuck for longer than anyone expected. People checked maps, called their workplaces, and wondered why the highway had suddenly become a parking lot. Commercial trucks were caught in the same backup as everyone else. What had started as a ranch access decision was now affecting an entire transportation corridor. Marcus decided not to argue. Instead, he began carefully documenting what was happening, including the traffic, the closed passage, and the changing conditions around the ranch. That evening, Marcus spread the property maps across his kitchen table. He wanted to understand exactly how the underpass connected the ranch, local roads, and highway drainage system. Across town, Karen was facing questions of her own. The HOA board members were no longer focused only on the gate. They wanted to know why traffic conditions had become so severe. The board began reviewing the original plans for the area. The more they looked, the clearer it became that the underpass served a much larger purpose than they had considered. An independent transportation engineer was brought in to examine the situation. Marcus walked him through the ranch, explaining how the underpass had historically kept local movement away from the highway lanes. The inspection revealed that the passage was part of a carefully planned system. Closing one section changed how vehicles, livestock movement, and local access interacted with the surrounding roads. From above, the scale was impossible to ignore. The line of traffic appeared to stretch for miles through the valley. Marcus told Karen he wasn't looking for a fight. He simply wanted the access system restored in a way that worked for the ranch, the community, and the highway. The original engineering plans finally surfaced. They showed that the underpass had been intentionally incorporated into the area's transportation design. Instead of blaming each other, the group began working on a practical solution. They discussed a control gate system that would preserve ranch access without disrupting the surrounding roads. Temporary traffic management helped reduce the pressure while the permanent solution was being prepared. For the first time in days, vehicles began moving more predictably. The new system was designed around the ranch instead of simply blocking it. It gave Marcus control over livestock movement while maintaining a safer connection between the separated sections of the property. When the new system was ready, Marcus opened the gate and calmly guided his cattle through. The passage finally worked the way it was supposed to. As the surrounding traffic pattern returned to normal, the massive backup slowly disappeared. The valley began moving again. Karen had started the whole situation, believing the simplest solution was to close the passage. Now she understood that infrastructure rarely works in isolation. Marcus never wanted the highway to become a battlefield between neighbors. He only wanted the land and the infrastructure around it to function the way they were designed. By the end of the ordeal, the traffic was moving and the ranch was functioning normally again. One blocked underpass had taught the entire community a lesson about how connected everything really was. Marcus looked toward the highway one last time and smiled. The gate was no longer a barrier. It had become part of a solution that worked for everyone. If you enjoyed this HOA story like the video, subscribe for more HOA stories and tell us in the comments where you're watching from.